with today's webinar. First of all, thank you very much for joining us today. We are really excited to have you here. And I think this session will be really valuable to all of you because we have prepared a lot of insights and examples that we have never shared before. So first of all, let me introduce myself. I am Ceci, Marketing Manager at nocnoc, and I will be your host for this webinar. And I'm here together with Martin from my team. He's part of the business development team at nocnoc, and he comes from the tech retail space and has over 6 years of experience in leadership. And at nocnoc, he works closely with sellers and brands, helping these companies to expand in Latin America. And also we are joined by Brandon from Jungle Scout. Brandon is a leading voice in the enterprise e-commerce strategy ecosystem and has a deep experience in Amazon channel growth, product innovation, and global market expansion. He also at Jungle Scout has worked with some of the world top brands and agencies. And of course, we also have Ben and Mel from Walmart. So Melina is a business administration graduate with over 7 years of experience in e-commerce, and for the past 2.5 years, she has been working at Walmart Mexico, leading commercial teams for the extended assorted team and now managing cross-border trade for the marketplace. And also we have Ben, who brings extensive e-commerce expertise to the Walmart team. He has previously worked at Pattern, where he managed a 450 million global portfolio across Amazon, Walmart, Target Plus, and D2C channels. And throughout his career, he has helped partners achieve double growth sales. So as you can see, we have a great lineup of speakers, and everyone has a deep expertise in e-commerce and marketplace and growing sales in new channels and new markets. So I will kick off this webinar with one question, which is, why should you even care about LATAM peak season? So I know that you are a brand working in the US and you're really busy trying to grow your sales, protect your margins, and win the buy box. But imagine that you're able to diversify your sales into new markets that are less saturated, that there has less product variety, and that local prices are really high, so you can get higher margins from your sales, and that there are multiple marketplaces, and that you could bring your products to more customers. So the key point here is having a diversification strategy is essential, especially during the biggest and busiest shopping seasons of the year. And depending only on one market, in this case in the US, can limit your growth. So to illustrate this, I brought some real examples working from our sellers that will illustrate what I have just mentioned. So the first of all is a seller of ours couldn't win the buy box on Amazon US. He struggled a lot to position their listings and to win the buy box over competitors. But he could become, when we helped them expand into Walmart Mexico, he could become deal of the day, and he attracted a lot of new consumers and gained a lot of visibility. So the truth is that most US sellers put all their efforts on US sales and don't pay attention to other markets, which makes sense because I know that the US market is really big and you could win a high portion of the market. But the truth is that there is also the opportunity to diversify sales, try new markets, and test the performance of your products in new channels such as Walmart Mexico. And in this way, you could get sales and get the visibility that you are not getting in the US. Another example is about an electronic seller that we work since last year. And when he started working with us, he saw a lot of sales coming from Argentina. So the example here, I wanted to bring this example because it shows that there are some markets that are growing exponentially in LATAM. And the case of Argentina is that since December 2024, since last year, the government is issued an import restriction that let consumers import cross-border products with no taxes up to $400. So a lot of consumers in Argentina started buying cross-border and started paying like less less taxes and cheaper prices as well, because local prices in Argentina are really high, especially with inflation and everything. So this electronic seller could bring their product assortment to Argentina and sell this sales peak in this market. So it's another example of how some markets can bring you more opportunities. And our last example is we work with a seller that sold perfumes and fragrances, and by leveraging marketplace campaigns, and I remember this was a specific coupon that was applied to one specific product, so the seller could increase a lot their sales. And this also translates the opportunity to try new marketplaces. Some marketplaces put a lot of effort into improving the visibility for the products and specific categories. So all of this translates to how sellers could get started selling and winning sales in the LATAM market. So now I want to share you some more info about the LATAM peak season calendar. And as you can see here, there are a lot of similarities with the US, but also we have a few key differences. So the first difference is that there are certain events, for example, Cyber Monday, that varies from country. So for example, Cyber Monday in Argentina is celebrated at early November, and I didn't include it here, but Chile, the Chile Cyber Monday happens on early October from 6 to 8. And then the rest of the country celebrates Cyber Monday on December 1st. So this shows like how the same shopping event can bring you different sales opportunities throughout the month. And also, as you can see here, last year's sales in Cyber Monday Argentina were really crazy. It broke sales records. And we are seeing a really positive scenario for this year as well. So again, it's like selling in LATAM can bring you different opportunities and not just one date in one market. Then we have Singles Day on November 11, and I think that a great insight about this shopping event is that even if it's an event originated in China, many marketplaces are bringing deals and promotions for all kinds of products, not only Chinese brands. And in Mexico in particular, the awareness is growing really strong year to year. And last year, 30% of Mexicans participated and both things. And then we have Buen Fin, of course. I won't get into more detail about this because Mel and Ben will later explain about this shopping event. And then we have Black Friday, which is a strong event on Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, and Chile, and Mexico as well, even though the strongest event is Buen Fin. And as you can see here, sales are growing year to year, and especially in Brazil, there is a strong market and a strong opportunity for Black Friday. And also another key point I wanted to bring here is that even if it originated as a one-day event, only the last Friday of the month, of November, sorry, now it's not only just one day. All marketplaces put promotions throughout the month, and in some cases it's like an entire week of deals and promotions. So if you participate in the LATAM peak season, you are not just getting sales for the last days of November, you are getting sales starting early or November in Cyber Monday Argentina, then Singles Day, Buen Fin, Black Friday. So yeah, it's like a nice scenario for you to start putting your products and gaining awareness and sales. So here I also brought some really nice highlights about this year peak season and in general. So the first highlight is that Latin Americans have this culture of saving all through the year and spending on November, December, because we have here a 13th salary called the aguinaldo, which other countries don't have. So Latin Americans, and myself included, we save money through the year to spend on the last months because we want to purchase things that we need or that we want, but want to wait until a big deal and a big discount. So this is why the awareness of Black Friday in Latin America and all the peak season dates is really strong and is really gaining popularity year to year. And another key point related to that is that 60% of Brazilians plan to shop this year on November, with an average spending on 108 USD. So you can see here, it's a really high ticket size. It's not like at one purchase from one person. Sorry, it's like people really wait until November to buy things they need, and they spend a lot of money. So of course, I think this is a great insight for those sellers that have high end tickets, that they could have more possibility of selling those in November during Black Friday. And then another great highlight is that over 40% of Latin Americans, research prices months before Black Friday. So in this sense, it's really important to think about your pricing and discount strategy the months before and the weeks before, and not only putting a discount on the same day, because people research and they get very worried about fake discounts and everything. So they start researching really early, trying to look for the best deals. So my advice would be to plan in advance, start planning right now about your discounts, promotion, and what will be like the right pricing for your products. And then another great point is that mobile e-commerce is also gaining popularity. And last year, over 62% of online sales were made through mobile phones. And last but not least, another key point is offering alternative payment methods and installment plans, because here in LATAM, and specifically in Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina, people is really used to buy products in installments. And if you can't offer that in your store, you are missing a lot of opportunities. So when you are deciding and you are like planning your sales strategy, you need to sell through a channel that allows this. So thankfully, many marketplaces allows buyers to buy things in installment plans, but you need to make sure that you're offering this, because if you decide not to, you will lose a high percentage of buyers. So here's my last point and my last slide before I hand it over to Brandon. But I wanted to quickly share again like the benefits of participating. And of course, one of the benefits is it lets you move stock faster. But I want to pause on the second benefit, that is long tail catalog opportunities, because I think it's a really strong benefits that not all see. And it's that when you sell in LATAM, first of all, local prices here are really high. So, and there is, of course, people import specific products. And the products that are available on some marketplaces are really high and are from resellers, but you have the possibility to expand your long tail catalog and bring products that are new to the market. So bring a new variety and bring products that people really can't buy here locally or in physical stores or in specific marketplaces. So this is a really nice opportunity to bring products that you can find here, because the assortment is limited, and also test the demand for the long tail catalog. And I want to bring here an example. So we work with Sony, which is, of course, all of you know Sony. Sony distributes consoles, gamings, and artifacts in all over LATAM. And we started working with them last year to help them distribute their long tail catalog of products via Latin American marketplaces. And we help them introduce cheaper prices than local resellers, but also bring a more variety of products and products that people usually bought from their online store, or bought when they traveled to the US, but they couldn't find here. And well, of course, you can get and achieve higher margins as well. So for example, here an example is we work with a perfume seller that when they brought their top selling in Latin America, they were able to introduce a nice margin because the reseller that was selling that product here was selling really high. So another benefit is that you can set like really attractive margins for your products. And of course, as I have shared before, you also benefit from an extended sales calendar. So not just Black Friday or Buen Fin, you have like a whole month to do promotions and, set attractive deals and discounts. So I hope you enjoyed this part of the webinar. And now I will let it over to Brandon, who will bring great data and insights that will also help you understand the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Cece. I appreciate it. And I do have to say, I definitely feel called out there. I am that buyer that waited till Prime Day to buy a bunch of expensive items, hoping for a good sale. And I'm sure I'm not the only consumer that definitely falls into that pattern. So that was a really good call out. So thank you, first of all, Knock Knock team, for inviting us. We're grateful to get a chance to work with you guys on this and kind of present some information from the Jungle Scout lens of things. So I work with Jungle Scout, and I want to tell you just a little bit about who Jungle Scout is in case you haven't heard of us. I'm sure you have, but just in case, I wanted to tell you a few things. And I say this not to impress you, but to impress upon you why this is important for us. Jungle Scout is the global leader in Amazon data. And I know from a talking perspective, we're talking about more than just Amazon in LATAM, but it is such a great indicator of consumer drive, product performance, that you can use that data across into your LATAM marketplaces. So Jungle Scout tracks 11x more GMV than any other provider in the space. We have over 1 million sellers that have worked with us over the last 10 years, integrating their accounts, working with our data, building our data moat and our data lake. We track over 600 million products daily across 24 categories in the US geography alone. We have over 10 years of data in our data moat, feeding our proprietary models for our data analysis. So Jungle Scout looks at growth on Amazon in 2 ways, right? So we'll look at this next slide here. And this is kind of how we approach it. And I'm going to bring this into the LATAM kind of conversation. So we look at growth on Amazon, and you could say growth on e-commerce platforms in general. Actually, this translates very well, is 2 really big kind of levers you can use. You can either sell more products or you can charge more, right? Those are kind of the main things you could lean into. And under the sell more side, that really breaks out into 2 specific areas. The third-party control, right? The third-party seller market, Cece had mentioned, right? With like direct Asian importers, counterfeits, knockoffs, resellers. That could be disrupting you if you're a well-established brand in the market, or if maybe you are a smaller brand, you want to be the disruptor. You want to kind of shake some of the big brands up. The other part of that is product innovation and assortment. Do I have the right mix of products in my catalog? And this translates so well to this conversation, because if I am crossing borders into other marketplaces, do I have the right mix for that region, for that geography, for that consumer group? And I want data to back up that decision. I don't want to just throw things out there and see what works. I want to come into this with a very specific approach. And then the last part of that, and this kind of leans back to what Cece was talking about charging more, pricing elasticity. What is the market support from a pricing perspective? And I love that you pointed out that in some of the LATAM markets, pricing is a little bit higher just inherently than, say, a US market that's more established, much more saturated. Pricing is very competitive. And so you can use these different levers. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what we look at. We call this our Amazon scorecard. All right, so kind of on the next visual here, Amazon brand health. So if we're looking at a brand, we're going to look at a couple things. Where does your revenue stack up against the category where you play? Are you growing with the category at the same rate or more? What does that look like from a unit orders perspective? And where do you sit in the average selling price point? Are you meeting the consumers where they're spending their hard-earned money, or are you on the low end or the high end of that? And this breaks up into some of those different areas. We're going to focus on today about distribution, talking about Amazon Mexico here in just a moment, but also assortment and innovation a little bit later in pricing as well. So let's talk about this from the Amazon lens for US and Mexico. So on the next slide, we were doing some research looking at selling in the US and Mexico. And across the last 2 years, these are what kind of stood out to us. Just top line, in the US alone, you're averaging between 650 to 670,000 sellers across this time frame. But what we're seeing is in the Mexican market, that there is this steady but slow growth of sellers that are US-based businesses moving into Mexico. And it's not this massive spike, which I actually think is a good thing, and I'll explain why in a minute, but it is consistent and it's gradual and it is trending the way you want, up and to the right over time. So what we noticed is, on the next slide, I'll give you a little bit better visual of this, kind of breaks it down a little bit more. So if you look at US sellers and US sellers selling in Mexico, so the blue there across the board from 2023 up through September of this year, US sellers not selling in Mexico is pretty large. But if you look at the red section, US sellers that are moving into Mexico, like the other graph, it is constantly and consistently increasing at a very specific rate. And what this tells me is there are businesses and brands that get it. They understand that if we want to expand and grow our business, we have to look for opportunity in other parts of the world. If we are solely focused and exclusively looking at the US geography, how much are we really limiting ourselves? So what I see here is these, we'll call them early adopters, that understand this opportunity. They're going to be the brands or sellers that get into these LATAM markets and stake their claim, grab their percentage of market, and be that much more difficult to shake up later because they're going to be that much better established than people that drag their feet, brands that are hesitant, or they don't recognize the opportunity right now. So the last part of this, the next visual, is what we were looking at from a percentage perspective is sellers in the market. At the end of 2023 was around 17% of US sellers selling in Amazon Mexico. And it dipped a bit around the first of the year. There might have been, I would think, outside factors, you know, it was an election year and politics and different things of that nature. But since early 24, it has constantly and consistently climbed in regards to sellers entering that market. And so at this point, we're north of 20% as of September. So a 3+% gain from where we were just over a year ago. So everything that we looked at here is just reinforcing the fact that sellers or brands are starting to see this, and they're realizing that to win in e-commerce, and I'll say e-commerce, not just Amazon, they have to start broadening their horizons. And for a lot of US sellers, and I know this resonates with the Knock Knock team, Mexico is the gateway into other Latin American markets. It's such an easy transition to move your freight and move your storefront, so to speak, digitally into Mexico and to get on other platforms like our counterparts here from Walmart, that is not a huge lift as a business. And you can get that success there and then use that to launch into additional markets in Brazil and Argentina and other parts of Latin America. So where we're building this from, kind of the next visual, one of the things Jungle Scout's really great about is we have an insane amount of seller data, right? So when we look at the market and we look at what's happening in a geography, we're not just looking at category and subcategory. Okay, yeah, health and beauty is growing. Great. But inside of that space, what specific area is growing and which brands are driving that growth and which products in their catalog are where they're staking their claim and gaining that market share. So for Jungle Scout, we look at brand level data around revenue and unit shares, new ASINs in the market and subcategory expansion. And then at the ASIN level, we're looking at pricing trends and revenue trends. And then the seller granularity, that 1P, 3P split, direct sellers, how impactful that is in the market. So all of the previous visuals, this is the data we're leaning into to gain that type of insight. And so here's why it's important to our conversation today for this specific part of it. So if we jump to the next slide, we ran an innovation report earlier this year around ways that leading brands in Amazon US were winning in the Amazon US space. And one of the things that really jumped out to us was we had a whole section about outbound expansion, US brands going global. Right? I feel like that resonates with this conversation. So what we found or what we saw was that brands that are doing well overall, especially in the US market, are supported or are leaning into these other marketplaces globally. They are not limiting themselves to just one geography, but they have very much omni-channel approaches. I know this will resonate for Ben coming from Pattern. Omni-channel approaches, being in lots of marketplaces, getting their products in front of the right consumers where the consumers are looking, whether that be on Amazon or on one of our other marketplaces in other Latin American countries. So we ran this report, and I'll bring this to a close with this last part. So in the report, there was a case study around this health and beauty brand called Medicube, I believe it was, the next visual, Medicube. So Medicube is not a health and beauty brand that you know. It doesn't come to mind when you think of the beauty space for the large brands that are kind of global presence that we all know, right? But Medicube in the last year or plus, 2 years, has come on strong in the US market, and they've done it in a very specific way. They've been leveraging pricing elasticity. They've really dialed in their advertising and have used it to do a lot of A/B testing and have really become efficient with what they do. And they've leaned into other things such as influencer marketing. Don't take my word for it. Listen to these folks. They'll tell you what they think. And they've really captured a formula that worked. So here's why this is important. If I'm Medicube and I am succeeding in the US to this degree, I can take this formula and fundamentally I can apply it to these other Latin American marketplaces. Now, there'll be some differences, slight cultural differences, differences in the timing of calendar, which I love you pointed out, because if I'm only focused on the US, I only have certain peak time series, right? Prime Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but they're very limited. But when I start bringing in the global view, there are constantly kind of ever-changing tentpole events and seasonalities that now I can have a full year of seasonality, not just very small time frames. So if I'm Medicube, I'm looking at moving into Amazon Mexico or some of the other marketplaces, and I'm going to take my formula and reapply it. So now let's look at this through a slightly different lens. I am not Medicube, but I am a competitor of this brand and I'm in the space and I see how well they are doing. And I want to kind of open in other markets as well. I can still study Medicube's data and understand what they've done right to use that as part of my strategy on if I'm going to launch in a new market, what's winning in this leading market in the US. The US market might be very saturated. It's tough to get a foothold, but this type of product does really well. And I have that in my catalog. I want to launch that in another country where I know there's drive for that. So I can use these leading brands and trend indicators to help guide my strategy on expansion, right? And then the final part of this would be, if you're not in a Latin American marketplace at all, you can just lean into the US data set because it's such a leading market. Amazon is the biggest e-com platform on the planet currently, and the US geography is the largest of their group. And you can use that again as a way to bring value to your strategic conversation, looking at what do we do? How do we do it? When do we do it? And begin to put that together so that we're not just, throwing things out there, hoping to see what sticks. I know from the marketing side of things, right? They always say, we'll just throw it against the wall and see what sticks. Well, that's not how we want to launch products and new businesses. It's not the best strategy. It's definitely not efficient. So I know it's such a cliche, but data-driven nowadays especially is so important. You have to have the information. And I think everything that starts with this conversation, I'm going to lean into probably what Ben and Melina are going to talk about as well, is you have to have information to begin with. You have to understand what's happening and where and when and why and how to make better educated decisions for your business and look at where those real opportunities are in the LATAM kind of community. So I know I talk a lot and I talk fast. I'll pause for a moment and hand it back over to my counterparts here for Walmart, give them a chance to jump in as well.
Thank you, Brandon, very much. Well, Ben and Mel, it's all yours now.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. Appreciate all the great insights and agree completely on the research that Brandon shared, the growth that's taking place within Mexico, and clearly you don't want to always be a follower, follow anybody off a cliff, but a lot of people are moving to Mexico and there's good reasons for it. And so that's what we'll get into today and help you understand why it makes sense to play in Mexico right now, what the key moments are, what consumers are looking for, as well as what makes Walmart a great place to start. So looking at the Walmart Mexico platform specifically, some of you may already be selling on Walmart in the US, which is phenomenal. So you understand the playbook, you have experience with our platform, with the consumer. Walmart in Mexico is a force to be reckoned with. It's actually the largest retailer in Mexico, so similar to what you're familiar with in the US. And from the e-commerce side, fantastic reach throughout the country, both in physical and digital spaces, and we'll get into that later on in the presentation. But the site gets around 27 million unique monthly visitors as of earlier this year. So massive scale and instant reach to one of the largest countries in the world. Currently, we're seeing 40% year-over-year sales growth. So you're hopping on a rocket ship as you sell on Walmart Mexico. This is a quickly growing market and one that's poised to continue growing. And there's a ton of upside, especially as Mexico as a country continues to go more digital and the shopping behaviors continue to become more digital. And then lastly, there's strong preferences for cross-border purchasing. And so we see a lot of products. see a lot of products that are desirable for customers, a lot of products and brands from American companies, US companies, and US sellers, and the barrier to entry is a lot lower because consumers in Mexico are becoming really accustomed to making those cross-border purchases, waiting a little bit longer to get a product or a brand that they're really excited about and at a price that they're really excited about.
Okay, so we can skip there. Thank you. Thank you, Ben, for the introduction, and thank you, Knock Knock, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. Okay, for those who may not know, Buen Fin is the most important season of the year, where a big part of our annual sales happens. During this period, we triple our traffic, new users increase 6 times, and sales also go up by 3 times. So we can skip, please. Thank you. As you know, at Walmart, our main goal is to give customers what are they looking for in the way they want, and to make sure they can find everything in one place. That's why, through research and listening to our customer, we have identified some key things that we have expect during this season. First is the MSI, so customers can pay in installments. Attractive price with clear discount showing the previous price cross out, so customer can easily see the price drop. And fast shipping is become a key factor in the buying decision, and omni-channel shopping experience, so customers can buy and receive their products however they prefer. And for last but not least, a variety of payments, so to meet the customer prefer. So Tim, I like to close my presentation with a phrase we say at Walmart: "Let's play to win." So thank you again for your attention, and I will hand you with Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Melly. And if we could go back to the next slide, or the previous slide, just for a second. A few things I wanted to add on Buen Fin. First of all, you'll notice the official Buen Fin logo up here in the top left corner. So this is the main e-commerce event in Mexico, biggest event of the year. I remember when I saw this for the first time, I was like, who made that logo? Is that a Walmart logo? And come to learn that it's a government logo, so government-sponsored event that encourages participation throughout physical retail as well as e-commerce, which is really unique. In the US, we don't have a logo for Black Friday or for Cyber Monday. It's kind of this informal event that everybody's just decided to take part in. But this is government-backed. The country wants to stimulate sales during this period. It's very aligned with what Cecilia was mentioning earlier with the aguinaldo, that end-of-year bonus. And so customers are ready to spend this money. They know this is coming every year. There's broad participation throughout both e-commerce and retail, and customers expect the very best prices of the year. You can't see it super clearly maybe, and you may not read Spanish, but there on the logo it says the cheapest weekend of the year. So really customers are looking for the very best prices during this event that typically runs in mid-November. And Melly touched on some of those things that are most important, but one other that I want to drive home is the strike-through pricing. So attractive prices, the Mexico customer is always expecting that strike-through pricing and wants to see that they're getting a deal. In the US, I think we view it a little bit more as, a nice to have. But in Mexico, if they don't see it, they're a lot less likely to be interested in the first place, even if it's a desirable product and everything else is great. So as you think about Mexico and how you position your products in Mexico, definitely want to be sure you're offering strike-through pricing, you're comparing to that MSRP or list price, especially since you're already probably selling at pretty competitive prices. But we can't drive home the importance of this event enough, and the urgency. Some people get to this point in the year and they're starting to think about 2026 and their plans for 2026. A lot of sellers are doing anywhere from 25 to 40% of their full year sales just during this Buen Fin event. So you haven't missed the boat. Don't miss out on that. And if you want to capture some of that revenue and some of that sales opportunity here in 2025 and not have to wait another year for this to come around again, now is the time. And I know Knock will be speaking a little bit more to next steps and how to get started with Walmart Mexico and in the Mexico marketplaces. But this is an amazing time, and there couldn't be a better time to get started. Okay, so what are some of the categories that do well in Mexico, specifically on Walmart Mexico? What are we looking for right now? Fragrance is a phenomenal category to be in if you sell in the Mexico marketplace. I probably shouldn't share this, but I had spent a day reviewing some of our fragrance sales data, and in one of the days after, I woke up in the middle of the night and said to my wife, she remembers this, I don't, I said, wow, Mexicans buy a lot of perfumes. So it's staggering how well this category does in Mexico. If you're selling in this category, you have access to products in this category, the sales data is kind of mind-boggling. And we see that across plenty of other categories as well. So premium brands, we see some apparel brands here, cycling, ride-on toys. I won't list them all out by name, but there's a lot throughout the toys, apparels, accessory categories. And one of the things that I'll get into a little bit later, but we're happy to help provide more data on what's selling well, what products to bring. We work closely with Knock and other sellers to help them understand what's in demand in the marketplace and what products we're looking for more of. So to Brandon's point, that you don't have to launch blindly and hope for the best, but you can come in knowing what's going to sell well and bring the right assortment. Okay, next up in home, kitchen, and auto. Some of these aren't as easy to do cross-border, big and bulky, but there is demand for a lot of these categories. We see sellers have a lot of success with cookware and kitchen accessories, a little bit lighter, a little smaller, as well as appliances, those small appliances, and large as well. And there's definitely certain brands that are in demand in the Mexico marketplace. One that I would definitely be aware of is if you have access to this inventory or you're a brand that plays in the bedding or mattress space, there's a lot of demand for that in the Mexico marketplace right now, and specifically with Walmart when it comes to box mattresses, sheets, those sort of items. And auto's phenomenal as well, plenty of opportunity within auto. And then lastly here within more of our electronics category. So this is kind of the shining star of Walmart Mexico and where we see a lot of revenue potential and existing revenue. You'll see here brands that you're very familiar with. Most of these are prominent brands in the US and brands that US consumers are accustomed to purchasing and going after. New iPhone as well as refurbished, new Samsung Galaxy as well as refurbished, a lot within the gaming space. So we have Switch 2 listed there, but video game items do really, really well. You see gamer laptops there. So if you have items in that gaming space, those are items we'd love to bring onto the marketplace and have more of. Cameras is another category we're continuing to build out with huge potential. And you almost can't go wrong in this electronic space, especially if you're focused on the right brands. Okay, what are the benefits of working with Walmart if you're an international seller? So if you're selling from the US, we have a lot of great options. The first thing I want to touch on is fulfillment. There's a lot of ways you can fulfill and send your inventory into Mexico. One that we've recently launched that's still in pilot phases, but we're starting to see some really great sales from the sellers that are in that pilot is remote fulfillment. So if you've worked with Amazon, you may be familiar with NARF or Amazon's North American Remote Fulfillment. Similar program that Walmart's running into Mexico, where we utilize your US Walmart Fulfillment Services or WFS inventory to fulfill orders that come from Mexico. This is huge because it almost becomes a one-click approach to getting listings live in Mexico. We take care of translation for you. The inventory syncs from that existing US inventory pool. And it's really more of a hands-off approach that helps you get started quickly, and you can just set your pricing for the Mexico marketplace. You don't have to worry about some of these logistical things like customs or duties or that sort of thing. Shipping and advertising incentives. This is something that we'll work with a lot of sellers to provide, especially if they're looking to position inventory in country in Mexico, or if they're trying to get their traffic up, they want to start out with an investment in advertising. We love to support sellers as they're getting started so that they can see the results they're looking for in the Mexico marketplace. If there's enough potential with your account, or we view you as a high potential account, or the sales are there to justify, you may also get dedicated headcount. This is really unique for Mexico. You'd be paying a lot of money to have this with Amazon, and it's not easy to get. But Walmart, one of the things that we champion is we're all about people and being there to build relationships and partnerships and support the people that are selling on our marketplace. And so this is one of our sellers' favorite things about working with Walmart Mexico is they get dedicated support. They have someone there to hold their hand when they need it and help them figure out how to succeed on the marketplace. I'll get into these visibility levers on the next slide, and then category and pricing insights to help you grow. We talked through some of those categories in the previous slide, but we can also help you understand what pricing is going to be successful on the marketplace and how to set the right prices for your products so that you can find success. I mentioned earlier some of the unique physical and digital opportunities for Mexico. Two that I want to highlight: billboards. Walmart has an extensive billboard presence throughout the country, and especially in the Mexico City region, to get more eyes on your products. And we're frequently featuring Marketplace and the products that we sell on Marketplace. And then kiosks. So we have these orange kiosks in stores where the entire online extended assortment is available for customers to view and purchase. And they can even do that without a credit card. They can pay cash in the store to buy a product from Walmart Marketplace. This is big because a lot of customers in Mexico are unbanked. They may not have a digital banking account or a credit card. And so they need to make those cash payments when they're buying gifts for relatives or making purchases during Buen Fin. And so they can come and find your items as an international seller physically in the store on one of these kiosks. And then make the purchase, have it shipped to the store or to their house and pay in cash, which is really unique and not something that you're going to be able to do with any other marketplace. Okay, and lastly, just wanted to sum this up. How can we help you unlock cross-border e-commerce? So broad set of partnerships. One awesome partner and seller that obviously has brought us here today is nocnoc. Great team to work with, and they're a great option as you look at getting your foot in the water and testing out demand. And even for late stage, more mature sellers accelerating sales on a complex marketplace, they can be a phenomenal partner for that. Beyond that, we work as a Walmart team with a broad set of partners that can help with fulfillment, logistics, legal, whatever your needs may be as you're looking at moving cross-border. Product visibility, Melina's team and our commercial team can help make sure your products are getting all the traffic that they need. And then lastly, fulfillment options. Like I mentioned, it's not always easy getting your products across the border, especially if you're not working with an end-to-end partner like nocnoc. But we have different partnerships that you can lean on to help fulfill into Mexico.
Amazing. Thank you, Ben, so much. And now it's the turn of Martin. He will bring, oh, sorry, the last slide. So there's never a better time to sell in Mexico. Let's go. And now Martin will bring some great examples from our experience from last year and on 2023 peak season. So it's all yours, Martin.
Thank you so much, Ceci. So thank you also, Ben, for the explanation. We can say that Walmart works very tight with their sellers. We have a very good experience there, so that's true. So what I want to show here is how we've been helping US brands and sellers capture sales during peak season, and how we are able to leverage data to identify opportunity for sellers. So first of all, I want to talk about the LATAM Assad. I don't know if you are familiar with, but this perfume has been booming in 2024. In Latin America, Arabic perfumes are trending since early this year. At nocnoc, we identified this trend and knew that with the correct FOB price from the seller, we could win the buy box of multiple marketplaces and capture huge sales. So we did that, and in Black Friday, within hours, sales increased by 500%, reaching a total of more than 50,000 orders just in that day. So the second success case is our top seller of 2023, the Natri Ballet. At early October 2023, we detected a peak in demand of this specific SKU in Mexico. So we reached out the seller offering this product. We worked on pricing and fulfillment strategies, and the result was outstanding. More than 10,000 orders only in November 2023. Finally, I want to make a quick note on supplements. So as you guys all know, this category is very hot in the US. We've seen this in the Jungle Scout presentation of Brandon. So at nocnoc, we've worked on this by onboarding major players. We've delivered 168 year-over-year growth, and we truly believe that this category will continue to grow through 2026, because obviously the trend came down from the US to Latin America. So watch out, all those who sell supplements in Latin America. It's going to be a very hot category. So why nocnoc? So this is like kind of our sales pitch, but in nocnoc, the setup is very easy. So you don't need, if you want to go to Latin America, the first thing you think is, okay, you need to go to every country and create a local entity, and this is a hassle. That's a reality. So in nocnoc, you do not need any local entity. You simply upload your catalog to our platform, or we can integrate via one of our multiple options. Okay, so we have Shopify integration, we have GoFlow native integration, SFTP files, we can integrate via API, however. So once we get integrated, we can pull your product information, we can automatically translate and list them in more than 15 marketplaces in these 5 major markets. Okay, so in Mexico, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and Argentina. In 48 hours, you are live, up and going. And third of all, obviously, we will make all this commercial work for our sellers. Okay, so as well as we have a tight relationship with Walmart, we have it with other marketplaces, and we will work on campaigns, discounts, and everything what's needed to generate huge sales on our sellers' products. Okay, so that's kind of our 3 major characteristics. But here I leave you guys the QR in case you want to log in. You can just scan this one. I will reach you out, and we will work on listing your products in all these marketplaces at the same time, and obviously trying to get all these sales of El Buen Fin, Black Friday, and the huge peak season that it's coming. Happy to answer any question that anybody has regarding nocnoc or also Walmart, Jungle Scout, whatever.
Yes, well, I encourage anyone who's watching this to leave their questions either on the chat, or you also have a specific session to make any questions. So we will wait for 1 minute and see if anyone is interested, or if you are shy and you don't like to make your questions public, you then can send us an email and we can direct the questions to Jungle Scout or Walmart if needed. So let's wait for 1 minute and see if anyone has a question. I know that we extended a little bit after the time, but if you have some time to, send us your question. Okay, so I got one question, and I think it's for Brandon. It says, can I use Jungle Scout solutions to forecast demand in Latin America?
It's a short and a long answer. I'll give the short answer would just be yes, you could. Dependent upon the market you're looking in, Jungle Scout may have data for that marketplace. And if not, as I mentioned before, even using leading market data like the US geography or even the EU5 to see which products, which brands are driving growth can be really effective if you're looking at innovating on your catalog, kind of as both Martin and Bennett alluded to, launching the right products, having them set in the right place, getting the right assortment in those marketplaces. You can use Jungle Scout's data to find those trends. And I always say trust but validate. okay, I see this trending in the US market. Let me go do a little research and see what does that look like in this Latin American market? Is there a consumer drive for it? Is there anything I need to adjust regionally to make it more appealing in this market from a pricing perspective, packaging, delivery, payment options, all the things that the teams have touched on? Jungle Scout can give you a great wealth of data to start that process and get you launched into the right direction.
Amazing. So we got a comment or question that says, bestseller products are not necessarily successful in LATAM and target prices are different. So maybe Ben and Mel, can you tell us more about what products might be more successful for cross-border sales and how to set the right prices for cross-border?
Definitely something that we run into. It obviously depends on the category a little bit, but you are going to have some products that sell phenomenally in the US and just fall flat in Mexico. I would say know before you go in which categories have high potential and which categories have demand, especially because it is a different culture and a different consumer. So, things like camping or very niche products in some of these home and outdoors categories, they may not sell well in Mexico just because it's a different culture and different, hobbies that people have. So be aware of that. If you are seeing a product that you think should do well in Mexico and it's falling flat, I would go back to the fundamentals, make sure pricing is right. Are you competitive with the other marketplaces that you're not selling on, or is your pricing consistent across marketplaces? Are you offering MSI? That was one of the things that Melina talked about. So monthly installments are going to be really big in Mexico, especially if you have a high ticket item. Are you offering, the ability for people to purchase those items in installments to make that more attractive for consumers? And then at the end of the day, are you winning the buy box? Is there strike through pricing? A lot of those basics that you should be used to from the US will help guide pricing decisions. But yeah, not every product that is a hit in the US will also do well in Mexico. So lean on the data where you can, and then try to diagnose where you may be missing. Is all of your content in Spanish? Do you have it optimized for the local market? Are you seeing traffic to that listing? How do you drive that with advertising or help stimulate that with different keywords? And keywords is a big one because you may be using a translation tool or an AI tool for translation that picks a certain keyword, and it may be the completely wrong keyword that is, it may be a true translation. I think we saw an example with lunchboxes, right, where it did a literal translation into Spanish, but it wasn't the word that gets used colloquially or locally in Mexico. And so there was no traffic on that keyword, and the sellers weren't seeing traction. So that's another good thing to think about.
Exactly, Ben. Well, and we got one more question, and maybe we can wrap this with this question that says, I am worried about compliance and regulations in markets like Brazil. Do you know if some products have issues? Maybe Martin, you can talk about how we work with compliance and regulations.
Sure. So the thing is, yes, some of your products might have issues, but the reality is when we pull your products, we know which products to list in each market. Okay, so we will only list in Brazil the allowed products in Brazil. Okay, then you won't have any trouble there. You all you need to give us is access to your catalog, and then we have our internal filters. For example, we know that we can sell perfumes in Walmart Mexico, and they do very well, but we can't in Uruguay. So we will list your products in Walmart Mexico, but not in Mercado Libre Uruguay, for example. So the answer is leave that job for us, that we will handle that, and we will list whatever we can in each market and each marketplace.
Amazing. Well, thank you all for joining us. We will send a recap email with some of the great insights and everything. And we can leave the contact details for Brandon and for the Walmart team if you want to get started, and also to get started with nocnoc. So Thank you again all for joining us, and we will send you, of course, the recording to everyone who attended so they can replay and watch it again. And well, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.